Hello and welcome to the MPP Insider. I'm Mike Mino. Let's get things started with another installment of In the News. As many of you know by now, we have some great news to talk about today, and that is that Arizona has passed medical marijuana. They are now the 15th state in the nation to have a medical marijuana law. Proposition 203, which was the MPP-backed ballot measure, passed by a little more than 4,000 votes when all the ballots were tallied out of about 1.67 million cast. So it was a very close election, especially in a year where we saw Republican gains nationwide. A huge victory. We now have another state in the medical marijuana camp, another one that is going to protect patients suffering from cancer and AIDS and other debilitating illnesses from arrest if marijuana is the medicine that works best for them. The ballot measure will also create about 120 tightly regulated state licensed dispensaries throughout Arizona. So another huge crack in marijuana prohibition, another crucial blow to the government's devastating, irrational, cruel prohibition on marijuana. We're going to get more medicine legally to the patients who need it in Arizona. So this is great news. We're hoping to build off this momentum with more victories in 2012. You can read a lot more about Proposition 203 and the plan for Arizona going forward on our blog, as always, blog.mpp.org. And to keep the good news going, I want to turn to New Mexico for a minute. In New Mexico, the New Mexico Department of Health has approved 6 more nonprofit medical marijuana providers in that state, bringing the total number to 17. So we keep seeing these programs expanding. New Mexico's program, even though it's opposed by the incoming Republican governor, has worked well. It's tightly regulated and popularly supported, most of all. And one of my favorite stories from the past couple weeks actually came from outside one of the 50 United States, but still within United States territory, and that was in Puerto Rico, where a judge on the Boston-based First Circuit Court of Appeals, Juan Turella, a 77-year-old judge, first appointed by Gerald Ford, promoted by Ronald Reagan, gave a speech at the University of Puerto Rico Law School where he said, "Our drug laws have failed and it's time to begin experimenting with drug legalization, starting with marijuana." He cited many studies, a lot of history about marijuana prohibition, spoke to an audience of mostly students and some professors and dignitaries in Puerto Rico. But his comments were picked up, and we wrote about them on the blog. Check it out there. And got picked up over the internet. So once again, we have another esteemed official, certainly someone who is appointed by Republicans, who is a sitting federal United States judge saying our drug laws have failed. Let's end marijuana prohibition. Huge development. Also, another U.S. territory, the Commonwealth of Northern Mariana Islands. Recently, their House of Representatives, this is a U.S. territory, it's an island out in the Pacific Ocean, their House of Representatives passed a bill that would make marijuana legal for medicinal and recreational purposes, passed by the House of Representatives of a U.S. territory. Unfortunately, it was voted down by their Senate, a rather close vote. 5 out of 9 senators voted against the bill. But still, we're seeing the notion that marijuana prohibition has failed and that a new approach is needed take hold outside of the 50 United States as well as within. So it's really exciting. We always talk about the incremental approach. These are all steps along the path towards victory. And with that, we're going to turn to a news segment today, which we'd like to call Better Know Your Drug Warrior. But of course, with this issue, it's not only good news we get to promote, but we also are going to give you some dire warnings about people who are still fighting to keep marijuana illegal, who still want to arrest otherwise law-abiding marijuana users, and who still want to keep the failure of marijuana prohibition alive. And one of those most responsible that we're going to focus on today is Michele Leonhart. We've talked about her before. We've talked about her a lot on the blog. This is a woman who has been in the higher levels of the Drug Enforcement Administration for many years. She was first appointed by George W. Bush to be Deputy Administrator of the DEA, and for the last 2 years has been serving as interim DEA head. During that time, she presided over hundreds of raids on state legal medical marijuana patients and providers. She herself rejected an application from the University of Massachusetts to do FDA level research on marijuana to help move it through the FDA approval process. And just last week, She was before the Senate Judiciary Committee to be confirmed full-time as the new head of the DEA. She was renominated for that post by President Obama in February. And of course, this is very disturbing to many of us who were hoping that the current Obama administration would offer a new direction in marijuana policy. And we've talked a lot about the frustration we've had with current drug czar Gil Kurlikowski, but especially with Michele Leonhart, who is a holdover from the Bush administration, who presided over Bush-era raids and harmful tactics against medical marijuana patients. And now President Obama, who had this pledge to respect state medical marijuana laws, has nominated the same exact person that President Bush did to lead the DEA. Now, what we've gathered from our sources and from behind the scenes is that her nomination is all but certain. Very few people want to vote against an Obama nominee. The Democrats are still in charge of the committee until next year. However, what we were hoping and what our allies were hoping was that by generating emails and calls to senators who serve on the Judiciary Committee, we could get some people to ask some really tough questions of Ms. Leonhart. Ask her, as DEA head, how is she going to address this growing divide between state and federal marijuana laws? We now have 15 medical marijuana states. Unfortunately, not a single senator asked her a tough question about marijuana in particular, and it was very disappointing for us to watch that hearing. But what did happen was Senator Jeff Sessions, a Republican from Alabama, tossed her a few softballs where he was basically saying, look, I think marijuana is bad and should remain illegal, and I think all the arguments for legalization are false, and I need you to tell me that you agree. And you can go to the blog.mpp.org, to read her comments, but she basically said that not only would she continue to enforce federal marijuana laws in states where medical marijuana is now legal in direct violation of a directive from the Obama administration's Department of Justice, but she went on to say that legalizing marijuana would not help the cartel situation in Mexico, which numerous studies have showed is blatantly false. She said no one is studying the social effect of ending marijuana prohibition, the social cost of ending marijuana prohibition. Also, blatantly false. We talk to you all the time about new studies coming out showing the harm that is done by prohibition, not the drug itself, and how in a regulated legal marijuana market we would have far fewer problems than we do today. It was really just a very disturbing scene, but this is someone who we're going to have to keep our eye on. She is going to be overseeing the DEA for years to come. And with that, we're going to end that news segment, but I want to get two more plugs in for MPP before we're done, and that is some MPP in the media. We recently had our Director of Government Relations, Steve Fox, back on the Fox and Friends morning show for the third time, talking about our victory in Arizona. You can catch the video on our blog and on YouTube. And also there is a History Channel special that is on the airwaves right now. It's being repeated a couple times. A Chronic History. It is a history of marijuana prohibition, how it first happened, and the movement to end marijuana prohibition. Interviews a lot of leaders in the field on both sides of the debate, including MPP Executive Director Rob Campia. So if you're flipping around the channels, see that on the History Channel. Please take a minute, check it out. Rob and others talking about the movement to end marijuana prohibition. And I think that's going to do it for us here on the MPP Insider. Thanks as always for watching, and please continue to check the website for updates. Don't give up hope. There's a lot of progress, a lot of good news to be had down the line. So thanks again.